What if the person holding you back the most is the person you've been pretending to be? You've rehearsed that old identity for years, so much that you've mistaken comfort for freedom. But the Stoics believed in a radical truth: if you want to rise, you must first burn the script that's keeping you grounded. Every morning you wake up, dragging the silent weight of who you used to be. It doesn't scream, it whispers, it lingers in your habits, echoes in your decisions, and shows up in the mirror as a version of you still chained to an outdated script. You carry it around like a shadow, those old fears, those learned limitations, the excuses you dressed up as reasons. That voice in your head, the one that calmly insists, "This is just who I am," that's not your protector. That's your prison warden. And the Stoics, they saw this for what it truly is. They knew that who you were yesterday has no authority over who you can become today. They believed in self-authorship, in rewriting the map of your identity, not with fantasy, but with fire. This isn't some fluffy motivational soundbite. It's a war strategy. If you want liberation, real, soul-deep liberation, you must be willing to kill the version of you that thrives on limitation. The you that feeds off self-pity, clings to resentment, dances with procrastination, and thrives on overthinking. That version of you, the reactive one, the hesitant one, the one who stalls and sabotages, that version must be laid to rest. Because this isn't about minor tweaks. This isn't self-improvement, it's self-destruction and rebirth. It's transformation. And the Stoics? They left behind the blueprints, the mindset, the method. The part of you that believes you can wait for the right time, that you'll do it tomorrow. That's the most dangerous part. The Stoics understood what most people try to forget. Life is brief. Tomorrow is never guaranteed, and each time you hesitate, each time you delay, you're gambling with the most precious currency you have, your time. The clock is ticking, and the old you is already digging your grave. Today, we step into the fire, not to burn for the sake of pain, but to rise anew, page by page, chapter by chapter. We're going to walk through the mindsets, the disciplines, and the fearless framework the Stoics lived by. Tools not just to improve your life, but to rebuild it from the ashes of the old self you must leave behind. Now, we begin with the very first battle. Chapter 1. The Art of Self-Renewal. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." But before you can walk toward that vision, you must bury what's been holding you back. Your old identity, though once familiar, is not your final form. It's merely a draft, not a sentence. The human mind, by design, craves what's familiar. It clings to routine, to old thoughts, to repeated patterns, even if those patterns keep you small, limited, and quietly suffocating. That's why even the idea of change can feel like a threat. Not because it is harmful, but because it is unfamiliar. The comfort of who you were becomes a prison disguised as safety. But the Stoics shattered that illusion centuries ago. They knew identity is not written in stone. It is shaped like clay, malleable, ever-changing. Through your daily thoughts, your smallest decisions, your repeated choices, you're either shaping your future or re-cementing your past. And here's the harsh truth. The only thing truly trapping you is the illusion that you are still that old version of yourself. When that realization finally lands in your chest, not just as a thought but as a visceral knowing, something inside begins to break. Not in despair, but in release, like a lock snapping open. You see the truth clearly. You are not chained to your old self unless you grip the chain yourself. Letting go is not about forgetting who you were. It's about refusing to be defined by it. But clarity alone is never enough. Awareness is only the spark. The fire is built in action. You can spend years reading, planning, reflecting, but without motion. It's all a well-decorated illusion, a prison with nice wallpaper. True growth only begins when you enter the furnace, the heat of real transformation. The moment you look at the pieces of your false identity, the excuses, the outdated narratives, the borrowed beliefs, and start dismantling them one by one. You've worn that mask for too long. You've told yourself the same tired stories. I'm just this way. This is who I've always been. But are those words even yours anymore? Or are they echoes from a past you've outgrown? Here's where it turns. Each day you look in the mirror and ask yourself, not kindly, but honestly, who do I want to become? That answer must come from your future, not your past, not what your failures told you, not what your regrets whisper, but from a place of bold clarity, spoken by the person you are choosing to become, deliberately, unapologetically, and with intention. And when your old identity tries to fight back, and it will, your response must be just as firm. That voice doesn't get a vote anymore. It's been evicted. No past version of you has earned the right to decide your future. Because the moment you fully, emotionally, and ruthlessly accept that the old you is not your final chapter, that's the moment rebirth begins. You finally stop fighting the past and begin crafting a future with your own hands. Imagine for a second, what if who you were was nothing more than the soil? And what if today, you chose to plant something entirely new? Tonight, before your head meets the pillow, name one trait you've dragged with you for too long: bitterness, avoidance, fear. Then visualize its opposite. Embody that energy tomorrow. Feel the resistance. Let it burn. That burn is the sound of your old self dying. And that's exactly where chapter 2 begins. In the war zone of your mind. The place where your old identity hides behind whispers. That voice in your head, the one that tells you, "This is just the way I am." It might sound like you, but it's not your truth. It's an echo from the past, a faint recording of who you used to be, not a reflection of who you're capable of becoming. That identity you carry, that script you recite silently in your thoughts, it's not carved in stone. It's a loop written by fear, by repetition, by years of unchallenged belief. Each time you repeat it, even quietly, even unconsciously, you breathe life back into a version of yourself you're trying to leave behind. You tighten the very chains you want to break. And the tragedy? You might not even notice you're doing it. You replay the same inner dialogue, wear the same old mask, speak the same lines, not because they empower you, but because they're familiar. But have you ever stopped and asked, why am I still playing this role? To truly evolve, you must do more than just wish for a change. You must go to war. Not a war of aggression, but a psychological war. A deliberate, conscious rebellion against the inner script that no longer serves you. You must rewrite your mental narrative the same way a seasoned general rewrites their war strategy after defeat, with clarity, precision, and ruthless honesty. Your mind is not neutral ground. It's a battleground. Each automatic thought, each limiting belief, each whisper of self-doubt is an arrow flying toward your potential. Will you let them land unchallenged? No, you interrupt, you intercept, but not with shallow mantras or blind optimism. You counter them with truth, with reality. You must catch the lie mid-flight and ask, is this objectively true, or is this just something I've practiced believing? Instead of saying, I can't, try this, I haven't yet. Instead of, this is who I am, try, this is who I've been, but not who I'm becoming. This simple shift reframes your identity. It creates space to grow, to stretch, to evolve. The old identity begins to lose its grip, not because you ignore it, but because you confront it with deliberate awareness. You must treat every thought like a soldier entering your territory. Ask, is this thought helping me build the life I want? Or is it pulling me back into a version of myself I've outgrown? Because the truth is, your freedom depends on it. And that brings us to the next battlefront, not inside your thoughts, but inside your patterns. Because the old self doesn't only live in your words, it hides in your routines, in the comfort you cling to. Let's talk about that in Chapter 3. Burn the comfort zone. The version of you that you're striving to become is not sitting idle, patiently waiting inside the walls of your comfort zone. It is not relaxing in the warm repetition of easy routines, nor is it hiding behind habits that demand nothing from you. Know that future self, the stronger, wiser, more capable you, is buried beneath trials, hidden beneath the weight of struggle, effort, and the unfamiliar discomfort that causes your mind to flinch and your body to hesitate. That version only rises when the current version is forced to its knees. Every time you choose ease over effort, you're not just pausing growth, you're breathing life back into the old identity you claim to despise. You resuscitate old fears, empower your excuses, and allow hesitation to sit in the driver's seat. You feed the very mindset you said you were done with, the voice that tells you to wait, to hide, to stay where it feels safe. Every indulgence, every rationalized delay becomes another thread in the web that keeps you stuck. You become your own jailer, tightening the lock with every excuse and reinforcing the bars with every act of avoidance. This isn't poetic transformation, it's war. The kind of war that happens inside your head and is won or lost in the quiet choices no one sees. It's a rebellion against your own inertia, against the soft whispers of laziness and fear that beg you to stay still. It's the fire that doesn't wait for permission. If you want to become something greater, you must be willing to destroy the structures that keep you small. The comfort zone isn't just a gentle resting place. It's a graveyard of everything you could have become. It's the padded room where dreams are muffled and suffocated, where potential withers beneath the weight of comfort and repetition. It's disguised as safety, but it's where ambition goes to die quietly. Nothing transforms in stillness. Nothing evolves inside boundaries built to coddle and contain you. Real growth only begins the moment you step into the unknown, the unfamiliar, the difficult, the painful. That's the arena where your future is forged. That's where the real version of you waits. Not in silence, but in the fire. The discomfort you're avoiding? That's your training. That's your teacher. Each time you face something you'd rather avoid, you're not just developing discipline, you're carving out a new identity. One action at a time. Speak the truth you always silence. Tackle the project you've been procrastinating. Make the call. Take the cold plunge. Do the thing your old self would find a way around. You're not simply checking off tasks, you're forging a foundation of grit. And that grit, once built, begins to wear down the ghost of who you used to be. You no longer need to fight for space inside the comfort zone, because you're moving beyond it entirely. And in that motion, something powerful happens. The echoes of the past begin to fade. Which leads us directly into the next truth you must confront. Chapter 4. Detach from the echoes of the past. Letting go of the comfort zone means nothing if the past keeps haunting your mind like a ghost dragging chains through every room you walk into. And that's exactly what it does, unless you stop feeding it. Memories of failure, shame, regret, they have no power on their own. They are not alive. They don't breathe unless you are the one breathing life into them. Over and over, like a spectator obsessed with their own suffering. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He didn't mean it as poetic encouragement. He meant it as an order, a direct call to reclaim your mental sovereignty. Your past may have been shaped by external chaos, but your present belongs entirely to you. The chains are only locked because your hand turned the key. Your old identity isn't some fixed reality. It is stitched together by outdated stories, fabrications built on who you used to be. Not who you truly are or who you're capable of becoming. These assumptions are flimsy, yet if left unchallenged, they become cages. If you continue to accept the belief that your past defines your limits, then you are choosing to remain trapped inside a prison whose door was never locked from the outside. To break free, you must stop performing for the ghosts. Stop letting the dead versions of yourself take center stage in your thoughts. Each time you silently replay a painful moment, some mistake, some humiliation, some misstep, you are rehearsing a role you've outgrown. That script is tired, the audience is gone, and the curtain should have fallen long ago. When you allow those thoughts to go unchecked, you're doing more than reminiscing. You are offering your attention and energy to shadows. You're inviting the past to sit at your table, feeding it from the plate meant for your present and future. And that ghost, it has only one thing to offer: more of the same. More limitation, more weight, more illusion. Each regret you replay, each what if you entertain, each loop of guilt you indulge becomes another link in the chain dragging behind you. But here's the truth: those links weren't forged by your past. They're being forged now, in real time, by your decision to reanimate a version of you that no longer exists. You are not bound to that past unless you continue to carry it. You are not obligated to haul those failures into today unless you refuse to leave them buried. Every time your thoughts drift backward into pain, you must meet them like a guard at the door of your own mind. Say clearly and without hesitation, "That person is gone. I am not beholden to their errors. I no longer wear their name." Let the echoes fade. Let the ghosts rest. Say it again if you must. that person no longer exists. I buried them. I decide who lives now. And in that declaration, you reclaim your power, not to rewrite the past, but to stop obeying it. You stop dragging a corpse through the present and start breathing fully as someone reborn. Which brings us face to face with a harder truth. Chapter 5. Take ruthless responsibility. Letting go of the past isn't enough if you're still feeding the false comforts of blame. After all, the old self doesn't survive on truth, it survives on illusions. And one of its favorite illusions is this: if only the world had treated me differently. If only things had gone my way, I'd already be the person I dream of being. That lie sounds seductive. It's soft. It whispers sweet nothings in your ear. It tells you that the storm outside is to blame for why you've stayed in place. It hums like a lullaby, easy to listen to, easy to believe. It says, you were just unlucky. It was out of your hands. But underneath that comfort lies a trap. That is how the old identity keeps its grip, by painting you as a passive character in a story written by someone else. It casts you as the victim of every missed opportunity, every rejection, every mistake. It tells you, you didn't fail, life failed you. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to see yourself not as a creator, but as a casualty. But here's what the Stoics knew. They didn't see blame as a tool of protection. They saw it for what it really is, a weapon turned inward. It's not a shield, it's a cage. And the worst part? You build that cage yourself, one excuse at a time. Every time you point outward, toward your parents, your upbringing, the market, your ex, your trauma, your past, you trade a piece of your power for the fleeting comfort of, it's not my fault. But that comfort comes at the cost of your growth. Because every moment spent blaming is a moment wasted, time stolen from the only person who can actually change your life, you. The truth is harsh but freeing. Your life belongs to you. Your response belongs to you. And your transformation? That, too, is yours to claim, or yours to abandon. No one else can carry the burden of your becoming. No one else can write the next chapter of your story. And until you stop waiting for the world to shift in your favor, until you stop begging fate to fix what only you can fix, you'll stay locked in the same place, frustrated and exhausted, at war with a reality that won't bend to your denial. You cannot shed the old self while still feeding it the poison of blame. You cannot create a stronger version of you while clinging to the weak narrative that the past is still in charge. Resentment doesn't make you powerful. It makes you repeat yourself, over and over, until the years blur together and your potential fades into a blur of what could have been. Blame is the soil where your old self thrives, fertile not with truth, but with bitterness, and nothing lasting grows in bitterness. No strength, no freedom, no clarity, if you keep planting the same tired seeds into that poisoned ground. All that will ever bloom is disappointment. But if you're ready to change the terrain, you must tear out those roots, uproot the excuses, starve the blame, and begin again. Start by saying it clearly. Even if your voice shakes, this is my life, my outcome, my responsibility. No one else is coming to save me. And now, just beyond this awakening, comes the real test. How do you respond when reality still feels unfair? Chapter 6. Own the pain and use it. Power begins the moment you take ownership, not just of your actions, but of your emotional responses. In the previous section, you learned that responsibility is the soil from which your new self will grow. Now, it's time to go even deeper, to confront the part of you that keeps waiting to feel ready before taking action. That part, rooted in emotion, is a trap your old self clings to. The old version of you is a prisoner of feelings. It acts only when it's inspired, only when motivation strikes like lightning. It wakes up tired, scrolls for a spark of energy, and tells itself, not today, maybe later. It waits for permission, waiting for the mood to be right, the moment to feel perfect, for the stars to align. But what if that moment never comes? What if you never feel like it? The Stoics never depended on motivation. They didn't trust moods or passing impulses. They understood something timeless, that discipline, not emotion, is the true engine of transformation. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations because he felt like journaling. He wrote them because he lived by principle. Discipline was his compass, not his comfort. Discipline is not something you find by accident. It's built, brick by brick, decision by decision, especially in the moments you want to quit, especially on the days you feel drained, unmotivated, or uncertain. You show up, not because it feels good, but because it's who you're becoming. That's the edge that cuts away the old self. The voice of the old self is cunning. It doesn't yell. It whispers gently. Wait until tomorrow. Start Monday. Just one more day of rest. But that voice isn't trying to help you. It's trying to preserve the status quo. It's trying to survive. And every time you delay, you feed it. You give it power. Your job is not to wait. It's to act. Action breeds momentum. Momentum builds identity. And identity creates a future. The new self doesn't beg for motivation. It chooses motion. It shows up in the cold, in discomfort, in doubt, and it acts anyway. Each time you choose principle over feeling, you chip away at your former self. Each decision becomes a chisel, sculpting the person you've chosen to be. You silence the old self not with words, but with patterns, habits that echo your values, not your impulses. Want to kill the old self? Start here. Do what must be done whether you feel like it or not. Take the cold shower. Sit down and write. Show up to train. Push through the mental fog. This is the kind of discipline that creates clarity. This is the discipline that the Stoics revered, not allowed. Aggressive force, but a steady flame that never flickers, even in the wind. Now pause. Look at your day. Where are you still waiting to feel ready? What action have you delayed because your mood wasn't right? Whatever that is, do it today. Not because you're ready, but because you're committed. You've now seen that waiting for ideal circumstances is nothing more than a subtle form of surrender. The storms of life don't delay their arrival to accommodate your fears. And the sea doesn't calm itself for the hesitant sailor. Life is inherently unstable, shaped by forces far beyond our control. If you keep hoping that the waves will part for you, you will remain stranded on the shore of your own potential, forever planning, never launching. The universe owes you nothing, not clarity, not comfort, not even a second chance. That's a brutal truth, but it's also your liberation, because it means that your power was never dependent on ideal conditions. It lies in your response to chaos, in your decision to rise anyway, to show up not when it's convenient, but exactly when it's inconvenient. That is the precise moment where transformation begins, not in the sunshine, but in the storm. You must stop waiting for things to get easier and instead start preparing yourself to get stronger. Stop hoping the load will lighten and start training your back to carry more. The old self, the one addicted to ease, escape, and external validation, pleads for mercy. It tells you to wait for motivation, to listen to feelings, to pause until things feel right. But that voice has kept you small. It has fed you lies dressed in comfort and sold you hesitation wrapped in logic. But here's what the Stoics knew and lived by. Real discipline is forged in the exact moment your body wants to give up. Your mind is clouded with doubt, and your heart pleads for relief. That moment, when quitting would be easiest, is the moment that separates the person you've been from the person you're trying to become. That's where the blade of discipline cuts deepest. That's where you strike the old self down. When you choose action over impulse, commitment over convenience, consistency over chaos, that's when the real rewiring begins. Not in grand gestures or perfect days, but in the cold mornings when you don't want to move, in the long evenings when the work is thankless, in the moments where no one sees you show up, but you do anyway. That is the slow, grinding crucible where the old self burns and the new self is forged. Stop bargaining with your feelings. Stop negotiating with your impulses. Refuse to live life like a weather vane, spinning with the winds of emotion. Instead, become the storm-hardened tree, roots deep, unmoved, unbreakable, and from that place, start building a self that doesn't react, but creates, a self that doesn't beg for ease, but demands strength from within. Choose one thing, one daily ritual. It could be your morning workout, a 10-minute meditation, a page of writing. Commit to it regardless of your mood. Show up whether you're inspired or not. Each time you do, the part of you that needs to feel ready loses its grip. That old version of you, undisciplined, scattered, soft, starts to fade, replaced by a self who acts out of principle, not preference. That's how you train not just your habits, but your identity. That's how you stop asking for permission and start claiming your path. That's how you prepare to confront the next barrier to transformation, not what fills your schedule, but what fills your mind. Chapter 7. Empty your cup. The discipline you practiced in the face of chaos has begun to reshape your identity. Now, as the fire tempers your will, another silent threat emerges: certainty. It's subtle, seductive, and if left unchecked, becomes a prison of the mind. The Stoics knew this well, that growth does not survive in a cup that's already full. To become more, you must make room. The old self is a collector. It clings to assumptions, wraps itself in rigid beliefs, and armors its ego with the illusion of knowing. It carries opinions like trophies, often unexamined, inherited, or absorbed from the environment, not earned through reflection. And every one of these beliefs, when left unquestioned, becomes a brick in the wall separating you from growth. True transformation requires demolition before construction. You must be willing to challenge your beliefs, to dismantle the mental scaffolding that has held up your old worldview. Not because it was all wrong, but because some of it has become obsolete. Ask yourself, how many of your truths have you actually chosen? And how many have simply been adopted out of habit or fear? Humility is not submission. It's the fierce act of carving mental space, of making room for wisdom to enter. It is not weakness but strength in its most evolved form. It's standing eye to eye with your own ignorance and saying, "Teach me." It's allowing space for evolution rather than clinging to pride. As Epictetus warned, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The old self thrives in false knowledge. It resists challenge. It shields itself from feedback and dismisses perspectives that do not reinforce its current identity. It finds security in being right, even at the cost of being better. It would rather die clinging to comfort than live through the discomfort of change. But the new self, the version rising within you, has no such fear. It is not threatened by uncertainty, it is fueled by it. It understands that doubt is not an enemy but a signal. It embraces confusion as a prelude to clarity. It sees feedback as a mirror, not a weapon, and wields curiosity like a sword. Growth begins not with affirmation but with interrogation. What if I'm wrong? Becomes a mantra, not a threat. This question isn't a crack in your foundation, it's a doorway. It opens the possibility that you are more than the sum of your current knowledge. That you are a perpetual student in the classroom of becoming. To dismantle the old self, you must first disarm its greatest weapon, certainty. Practice asking, listening, and absorbing without the need to defend. In conflict, instead of proving your point, try understanding theirs. In reflection, ask not just why you believe something, but whether it still serves the person you are becoming. This process will sting. It will bruise your ego. You might feel unmoored, as if the structure that held your life together is crumbling. But that feeling is not destruction. It is clearing. It is making way for something deeper and truer to emerge. Empty your cup, not just once, but daily. Pour out the stagnant waters of old narratives, outdated pride, and unexamined truths. Make space for curiosity, for growth, for wisdom to flow in fresh. And as you do, something remarkable begins to happen. The old voice that used to shout with rigid confidence begins to quiet. And in that silence, the whisper of truth can finally be heard. You cannot empty your cup without also putting down the armor. Without humility, you stay stuck in the hardened shell of your former self, too weighed down to adapt, too afraid to grow, and that weight keeps you rigid. It locks you into outdated patterns, making you believe that growth is for others, not for you. But once you release the ego, once you choose the vulnerability of questioning over the comfort of false certainty, something profound happens. You begin to change. Chapter 8: Harden through voluntary discomfort. If humility clears the path, then discomfort forges the way forward. The Stoic philosopher Seneca didn't merely speak about hardship from afar, he lived it deliberately. Despite his access to luxury, he practiced what he called voluntary hardship, a conscious decision to walk into discomfort when comfort was within reach. He would sleep on hard floors, wear coarse clothing, and fast, not because he had to, but because he understood the truth. Comfort makes the mind soft and the will weaker. Seneca knew that real strength is never built in ease. Strength is revealed, tested, and sharpened under pressure, not during peaceful days, but in the midst of resistance, when your instincts scream to retreat. And yet, you press on. Why does this matter? Because the old self feeds off ease. It thrives in routines that require no courage, no pain, no perseverance. It will whisper every excuse it can. It's not necessary. I don't feel like it. Or the most seductive lie of all. I can't handle this. This part of you isn't weak by accident. It has been trained to avoid adversity. It craves warmth instead of challenge, familiarity over growth. It wants you to stay in bed when the cold morning air would teach you resilience. It begs you to stay silent when speaking up would forge inner strength. And if you continue to obey that voice, you'll never meet the version of yourself who lives beyond that boundary. Voluntary discomfort is how you tear down the illusions. By choosing to fast, by choosing the workout when you're exhausted, by facing the cold or the silence or the solitude, you learn something irrefutable. Your mind lies about your limits. It tells you that you're fragile, that hardship will break you. But every time you step willingly into something difficult and come out on the other side, even if it's messy, even if it hurts, you redraw the map of your capability. You begin to distinguish between imagined suffering and true hardship. You see clearly that most of what holds you back isn't physical. It's mental, psychological, self-imposed, and every challenge you accept willingly becomes another chiseled blow against the old self. Cracking the shell of weakness to reveal the resilience within. The more you invite discomfort into your life, the less power fear has over you. You stop shrinking from life. You stop negotiating with your limits. You begin to build your character like stone, layer by layer, choice by choice, and in this construction, each act of voluntary hardship becomes a brick in the foundation of the new self, not one built in the absence of pain, but through its mastery. Now that you've begun to embrace challenge as the crucible of your identity, it's time to face the truth about your attachments, and how they might still be holding you back from becoming who you were meant to be. True transformation never emerges from ease, as we discovered through the fires of voluntary discomfort, only by choosing to suffer before life forces you to. Do you begin forging a version of yourself that is prepared, resilient, and quietly powerful? This mindset continues here, where strategy meets discipline and discomfort becomes not an enemy but a forge. Brick by brick, that stronger identity takes form, not built in comfort, but in struggle. Each cold shower, each early morning rise, each silent evening without a screen or vice, adds weight to the foundation of who you are becoming. This isn't suffering for the sake of masochism. This is suffering with a mission. It is strategic, purposeful, and deeply rooted in the art of renewal. You're not punishing yourself. You're preparing yourself. Seneca understood this principle long before modern science gave it a name. He practiced hardship while surrounded by luxury, not out of guilt, but out of foresight, because he knew the world would eventually test him, and he wanted to be ready. That is the essence of this Stoic wisdom. Train in peace for the war to come. Expose yourself to discomfort in small doses now so that the storms of life don't break you later. Try this. Once a week. Strip away a layer of ease. Skip a meal and allow hunger to speak. Don't resist the discomfort, listen to it. Rise before dawn not because you have to, but because mastery begins when the world is still asleep. Feel the chill of a cold shower. Not with resentment, but with purpose. Push your body beyond convenience. Do one more push-up. Run one more mile. Hold the plank longer than you think you can. Sit in silence. No music. No scrolling. Just you and your unfiltered thoughts. Can you face them, or do you flee into distraction? Resist that craving to soothe your anxiety with instant pleasure. Choose instead the power of discipline, the serenity of self-command. And when the old self begins to whisper, telling you to stop, reminding you of how nice comfort feels, that is your cue to push forward. Each of these moments is a funeral pyre for weakness, a small, controlled fire in which your former limitations are burned. These moments are more than habits. They are declarations. Each act of voluntary discomfort says, I am not ruled by comfort. I am not bound by impulse. I am in command of myself. And these small acts accumulate. Day by day, fire by fire, they become the slow, deliberate death of the old identity. And in its place, rises someone new, not soft, not fragile, but tempered, hardened, capable, unbreakable. Now that you've begun detaching from the chains of physical comfort, it's time to turn inward again. Because there is another subtle prison you must escape. The need for validation. The craving for praise. The fear of blame. These are the invisible strings that still try to control your steps. And they must be cut. Chapter 9. Beware the praise and the blame. Your path toward becoming unshakable doesn't end with silencing distractions or disciplining your body. It demands that you confront the subtler chains, the invisible pull of praise and the sting of blame. These are not just passing experiences. They are the levers the world uses to manipulate your emotions, your focus, and ultimately, your direction. The version of yourself you're trying to leave behind is deeply entangled in these things. It feeds on compliments like fuel and recoils from criticism as if it were poison. Its sense of identity rises and falls with the approval of others. A compliment becomes a drug, momentarily satisfying but quickly fading, leaving you needing more. A single word of disapproval, on the other hand, can send you spiraling into self-doubt, even if it comes from someone whose opinion should carry no weight in your life. That's how fragile the old self is. It lets the external world dictate its inner peace. This version of you is obsessed with recognition. It checks for likes, reads comments with anxious anticipation, replays interactions in its mind, trying to decode the tone behind someone's words or facial expression. It seeks validation at every turn because deep down, it hasn't yet validated itself. It hasn't learned to live by internal standards. Instead, it dances to the rhythm of other people's applause, or their silence. But here's the truth. If you allow your value to be defined by others, you're handing them the keys to your emotional well-being. You're offering up your sense of peace to strangers, critics, or even people who might not care whether you succeed or fail. That is not freedom. That is slavery in disguise. The Stoics knew this all too well. They didn't live for applause, they lived for virtue. Their compass was not praise or criticism, but principle. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that what others say or think is irrelevant unless it aligns with reason. He understood that both praise and blame are fleeting, moments shaped by perception. often warped by ignorance or projection. To outgrow the old self, you must stop performing for approval. Start acting from a place so rooted in integrity that recognition becomes irrelevant. Let your deeds speak for themselves. Let your effort be its own reward. Learn to move without needing anyone to notice. Imagine what it would feel like to create, to work, to strive for something important, and never once check who is watching. Would your actions lose their meaning? Or would they become purer, more powerful, untainted by performance? This is the mindset of the new self. It knows that the value of your actions isn't in how loud the applause is, but in how aligned your actions are with your truth. It knows that a quiet act of virtue, done when no one is watching, carries more strength than 1,000 performances done for claps. To train this mindset, start small. Do something meaningful without telling anyone. Write something you're proud of and keep it to yourself. Help someone anonymously. Choose the higher path not because you'll be seen, but because it's who you are now. And each time you feel the need to be praised or validated, stop and ask, would I still do this if no one noticed? That question will tell you everything. In the silence after that question, you'll find clarity. In that clarity, the old self loses its grip, and in its place, a grounded, principled version of you begins to rise. Chapter 10. Live as if you are dying. You've seen how death, not as fear but as focus, sharpens your perspective. Now let's walk deeper into that truth. This isn't poetic exaggeration, it's the most literal reality you face. You are not promised another dawn. There is no certainty that you'll wake up tomorrow with the same chances you have today. And yet, most people live as though time is an endless resource, one that can be wasted freely and retrieved at will. But every moment you hesitate, every hour you spend indulging the old version of yourself, procrastinating, scrolling, numbing your urgency, you're making a bet with your life. A gamble with the one thing you'll never get back, time. The old self feeds on that gamble. It thrives on distractions, stalling, promising you that tomorrow will always be available. It whispers comforting lies to keep you docile. But those whispers steal your days. One by one, they seduce you into letting opportunities pass, into avoiding the discomfort of change, into postponing the person you could become. Living as if you are dying does not mean living in terror. It means living with clarity. It means stripping away the fog of delay, the noise of endless options, and focusing on what actually matters. It's about cutting straight through the excuses and recognizing that each moment you waste is a nail in the coffin of who you could have been. You're not just delaying tasks, you're erasing futures. The Stoics trained themselves to face death, not to be haunted by it, but to be guided by it. They carried its presence not as a burden, but as a compass. They understood that death wasn't a distant event waiting at the end of life, it was here. Now, walking quietly beside every step. It isn't meant to terrify you. It's meant to wake you up. Death is the ultimate filter. It removes what's trivial, what's vain, what's unnecessary. It reminds you what's real. When you live with death in your awareness, you stop tolerating mediocrity. You stop wasting time on gossip, on regrets, on arguments that don't matter. You no longer make decisions based on what's popular. You make them based on what's vital. When you see time as finite, You stop waiting. You stop hoping the world will change on your behalf. You begin. You write the page. You start the project. You heal the wound. You speak the truth. And most importantly, you stop letting the old self narrate your life. Look around. How much time have you given away to things that didn't deserve it? How many moments have you spent worrying about what others think? How many precious hours have slipped through your fingers, sacrificed to fear, perfectionism, or meaningless distractions? Living with the awareness of death makes each moment sacred. Every conversation becomes meaningful. Every ordinary task becomes part of your legacy. Even sipping your morning coffee under the sunlight becomes a miracle, because it is. You begin to see that nothing is ordinary. That everything, in its own way, is fleeting and therefore precious. And in that awareness, urgency is born, not frantic panic, but grounded purpose. You start each day not with wishful thoughts about someday, but with a decision to act today, to live now, to stop rehearsing your future and start becoming it. You begin to notice that your energy, your attention, your effort, these are not limitless. They are currency, and every day is a purchase. When you live as if you are dying, you stop drifting, you stop just existing, you become deliberate. You begin to prioritize the things that will actually matter on your final day. The courage you showed, the people you impacted, the principles you lived by. The truth is, your time is already running out. The hourglass is spilling, silently, relentlessly. You don't get to choose how much sand remains, but you do get to choose how you use what's left. Now the question becomes, will you let the old self keep wasting it? Or will you rise and begin writing a story worth remembering? Once you've accepted the reality that time is your most fleeting possession, the way you move through the world changes forever. Living with this awareness means abandoning the fantasy that someday the stars will align, that clarity, motivation, and the perfect opportunity will all knock on your door at once. It means shedding the illusion that you need to feel ready before you begin. The truth is, your life isn't paused, waiting for your courage to catch up. It's moving forward, breath by breath, whether you act or not. What has been slipping away from you isn't just hours. It's potential, dreams unfulfilled, words unspoken, versions of yourself that never got the chance to exist, all lost in those subtle, stolen seconds that vanish between distractions, regrets, and quiet acts of avoidance. But once that realization hits, it hits hard. Something stirs deep in your chest, a hunger not just to survive, but to live. Not to exist as a shadow cast by routine or fear, but to step boldly into the spotlight of your own life. To take command of your days before they're reduced to nothing more than forgotten calendar dates. You begin to crave more than comfort, you crave impact. You begin to understand that your presence, your effort, your decisions matter now, not someday, not eventually, but right now. Because today is not a warm-up, it's not a draft, it's not practice for the real thing. Today is the real thing. There is no second act, no retake, no backstage pass to rewrite what you let pass by. The minutes you waste now won't wait patiently for you to reclaim them tomorrow, they're gone. Silent and permanent. Each time you postpone your growth, each time you keep quiet instead of speaking your truth, each time you tell yourself, maybe later, you are nailing shut the door on the life you were meant to live. You are letting the old self win. But this awareness, this deep, undeniable awareness of your own mortality, is not a weight to carry. It's fire. It's urgency. It's your final wake-up call. It pushes you out of the audience of your life and forces you onto the stage. No longer can you just sit and watch, hoping the plot gets better. You must write the plot. You must take the pen back from your fears and your distractions and begin scripting a life that reflects your truth. This doesn't mean waiting for huge moments. It means owning the small ones. It means being the person who speaks what must be spoken, who finishes what they start, who shows up, fully, honestly, fiercely. Every second wasted is a second that never returns. And once that curtain falls, there's no encore, no redo, only silence. To live like this is to greet every sunrise not with casual indifference but with a fierce reverence. To look at each morning as a gift, not a guarantee. To walk through the day like it's your only chance to leave behind more than a name, like it's your one opportunity to become a force that mattered. You begin to love harder. Because you understand love is finite. You listen with deeper attention. Because you know the people around you will not always be here. You become intentional with how you spend your time, cutting away the noise, eliminating distractions, and pouring your energy only into what truly counts. This isn't about heroic transformation. It's about how you move hour to hour, choosing presence over autopilot, choosing discipline over delay, choosing action over wishful thinking. Because the clock isn't slowing down, and if you're not actively becoming the person you were born to be, then the old version, the small, passive, hesitant version, is still in control. The reminder from before still echoes. You're living on borrowed time. And that truth, however unsettling, is not meant to weigh you down. It's meant to wake you up. It's meant to pull you out of passive routines and thrust you into the center of your own life. To live this way is to be relentlessly intentional. It's to step forward not with panic, but with presence. To resist the constant pull of distractions, and instead be led by a deeper force, clarity, urgency, and a reverence for the moment at hand. You stop chasing what's easy and begin committing to what truly matters. You no longer coast through your hours, letting them drift into oblivion. You hold each one close, like a flame cupped in your palms, knowing it could extinguish at any moment. Suddenly, even the smallest details begin to shimmer with meaning. The way you speak to someone you love, the effort you put into your craft, the choices you make before the day slips into night. You start treating each moment not as disposable, but as sacred. There are no reruns, no retakes, no magical rewind button waiting at the end of your story. You have this breath, this minute, this fleeting opportunity to shape your life. And once it passes, it is sealed, etched into the record of who you were and who you chose to be. Every delay now becomes a gamble. Every time you wait for the right moment, you risk never acting at all. And the old self, the part of you built on hesitation, fear, and self-sabotage, feeds on those delays. It grows stronger with every excuse, every postponement, every breath wasted on indecision. But something powerful happens when you stop feeding that part of you. When you shift your gaze from comfort to clarity, from procrastination to purpose, when you decide that no more seconds will be handed over to fear, that no more days will be sacrificed on the altar of someday. You begin to live with urgency, not a frantic pace, but a focused intensity, an awareness that each action is a brushstroke in the painting of your legacy. You begin to speak more boldly, to love more openly, to forgive more quickly, and to pursue your calling with a quiet ferocity that doesn't beg for approval. You notice how fragile everything really is, your opportunities, your relationships, your very breath, and in that awareness, you find your freedom. That is what it means to be truly alive, not merely breathing, but choosing action over hesitation, purpose over passivity, impact over comfort. Each morning, remind yourself, today might be the last chapter I ever write. What will I say with it? What will I leave behind in the wake of my steps? Write that truth down, read it, feel it, then rise and live accordingly. Because the clock isn't waiting, and neither should you. You've just walked through 10 chapters of war, not against the world, but against the version of yourself that's kept you small, silent, stuck. You've seen how silence can sharpen you, how discipline forges strength, how self-responsibility reclaims your power. You've stared death in the face and realized that it is not your enemy, it is your ally. A reminder that time is not infinite, and the cost of inaction is everything you could have become. These aren't just ideas, they're weapons, not for destruction, but for transformation. This journey was never about adding something to your life. It was about stripping away everything that no longer serves you. It was about killing the old self, the one addicted to comfort, validation, blame, and fear, and in its place, building a new one, resilient, grounded, dangerous in the most beautiful way. You now carry the blueprint. You know what must be done. But knowledge without action means nothing. If even one sentence in this video stirred something inside you, don't let it fade. Leave a comment below. I'm becoming who I was meant to be. Thumbs up like this video to honor the work you started. Push pin subscribe to Stoic Writ if you're ready to keep rising. Send mail share this with someone who's ready to bury their past and build their power. This is your rebirth, not tomorrow, now. You don't need permission, you don't need more time, you just need the courage to begin.